Our brains are shrinking right now. Every day you continue certain habits, you may be accelerating cognitive decline faster than you realize. Scientists have identified behaviors that can increase your risk of dementia by over 60%. The alarming part? Millions of people do these things without recognizing the permanent damage happening to their brain cells. A landmark study published in The Lancet followed more than 800,000 participants over decades and found that preventable lifestyle factors account for almost 40% of all dementia cases worldwide. In other words, 4 out of 10 people experiencing memory loss, confusion, or difficulty recognizing their own family could have prevented it. Right now, the choices you make are either strengthening the walls around your neurons or eroding the protective shield for your memories. The most shocking finding is that the top habit on this list can shrink your hippocampus, the memory center of your brain, by up to 1.8% per year. People who regularly engage in this behavior show brain scans resembling someone 10 years older. Even more concerning, this damage builds silently, often decades before any symptoms appear. A ticking time bomb inside your skull. All research and medical studies mentioned are in the description if you want to explore further. Before we begin, tell us in the comments your age and where you're watching from. We read and reply to every comment, so drop them below. Now, let's get started. Your brain has a waste removal system called the glymphatic system, which works mainly during sleep. It flushes out toxic proteins, like beta amyloid, that accumulate while you're awake. Poor sleep, or less than 7 hours per night, allows these proteins to build up like rubbish on the streets during a strike. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that just 1 night of sleep deprivation increased beta amyloid levels by 5% in critical brain regions. The less deep sleep participants got, the more toxic proteins clustered in areas vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease. Chronic sleep deprivation creates a vicious cycle. Toxic protein accumulation makes deep sleep even harder to achieve. The National Institutes of Health followed 7,959 people over 25 years and discovered that those sleeping less than 6 hours nightly had a 30% higher risk of dementia than those sleeping 7 hours. Interrupted sleep, where you wake up multiple times at night, is equally harmful because it prevents your brain from entering the deep sleep stages needed for memory consolidation and cellular repair. During deep sleep, brain cells shrink by up to 60%, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to remove waste. Without this cleaning process, toxic buildup accelerates neurodegeneration. Sleep apnea, where breathing repeatedly stops during sleep, is especially dangerous. It combines poor sleep with oxygen deprivation, increasing dementia risk by 85%. Brain imaging reveals shrinkage in memory and decision-making areas. Sleep quality and duration are now strong enough predictors of cognitive decline that researchers can estimate dementia risk simply by monitoring your sleep over time. Human brains evolved to be social. Meaningful interactions stimulate your neural networks, keeping them active and resilient. Extended periods of isolation cause the brain to atrophy in regions responsible for memory, emotional regulation, and complex thinking. A study in the Journals of Gerontology followed 12,030 adults over 10 years. Participants who felt lonely had a 40% increased dementia risk, regardless of how often they interacted with others. Perceived loneliness, not just physical isolation, triggers inflammatory responses that damage neurons. Research from Florida State University found that socially isolated individuals experienced cognitive decline at twice the rate of those regularly interacting with others. Social interaction challenges the brain to process facial expressions, verbal and non-verbal cues, formulate responses, and manage emotions, essentially a workout for the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. Social isolation also raises cortisol levels, the stress hormone, which damages neurons in the hippocampus. A study in the American Journal of Epidemiology tracked 2,249 women and found those with smaller social networks had 26% more cognitive decline over 4 years. Socially isolated individuals are also more likely to adopt other dementia-accelerating habits, including inactivity, poor diet, and inadequate sleep. Some researchers now compare chronic loneliness to smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of brain health impact. Your brain uses about 20% of your body's glucose supply. Flooding it with excessive sugar and processed foods can harm the very cells it depends on. High blood sugar triggers glycation, where sugar molecules bind to proteins in your brain, forming advanced glycation end products that damage neurons and blood vessels. A Columbia University Medical Center study of 2,226 participants found that those with the highest blood sugar experienced hippocampal shrinkage 6 to 10% faster than those with normal glucose. Even in non-diabetics, processed foods with trans fats, high sodium, and additives cause chronic inflammation, which directly kills neurons and prevents new connections. The Rush University Memory and Aging Project followed 923 participants over 5 years and found that those following a Western diet, high in red meat, processed foods, and refined sugar, had cognitive abilities equivalent to someone nearly 6 years older. Ultra-processed foods, now nearly 60% of the average American diet, are particularly harmful, lacking nutrients for neurotransmitter production and myelin maintenance. High sugar also promotes insulin resistance in the brain, sometimes called type 3 diabetes. A study of 5,589 people over 10 years showed that type 2 diabetes increased dementia risk by 60%, with risk rising alongside poor blood sugar control. Each sugary snack or processed meal contributes to gradual cognitive decline that manifests years later as memory loss and confusion. Sitting for long periods without exercise deprives your brain of one of its strongest protective factors. Exercise boosts blood flow, delivering oxygen and nutrients while removing waste. It also triggers brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which promotes neuron growth and new connections. A 30-year study of 876 participants published in Neurology found that low cardiovascular fitness in midlife led to smaller brain volumes decades later, effectively aging the brain 10 years. Physical inactivity also reduces neurogenesis, the formation of new neurons essential for memory and cognitive flexibility. Regular aerobic exercise can increase hippocampal size by up to 2%, reversing some age-related decline. The minimum recommended dose is 150 minutes per week, 30 minutes 5 days a week, but fewer than 25% of adults meet this. Resistance training is equally important, stimulating hormones like Allicin that enhance learning and memory. Even starting exercise in your 60 seconds or 70 seconds provides benefits, though earlier adoption offers greater protection. Exercise acts like a daily insurance policy for your brain, depositing cognitive reserve that preserves memory and independence as you age. Constant stress keeps cortisol levels high, while cortisol helps in immediate danger, chronic elevation destroys brain tissue, particularly in the hippocampus. Chronic stress kills neurons, shrinks dendrites, and prevents new connections. A Yale study of 103 participants found those with the highest stress had hippocampal volumes 20% smaller than low-stress individuals. Chronic cortisol exposure overstimulates glutamate receptors, causing calcium influx that triggers cell death. Stress accelerates telomere shortening, making brain cells age faster. UCSF research showed women with high stress had telomeres resembling someone 10 years older. Persistent stress impairs the prefrontal cortex, reducing decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation. A vicious cycle that worsens stress response. A 14-year study of 6,895 civil servants published in BMJ found that elevated cortisol was linked to a 14% reduction in total brain volume, with severe effects in memory-critical regions. Chronic stress also weakens the blood-brain barrier, allowing toxins to damage neurons. Modern life keeps many people in constant stress, and the damage often goes unnoticed until it has already begun affecting cognition. Alcohol is a neurotoxin that kills brain cells. Even moderate drinking causes cumulative brain damage, increasing dementia risk. Alcohol crosses the blood-brain barrier quickly, disrupting neurotransmission and triggering inflammation. The Oxford Whitehall 2 study, following 550 participants for 30 years, found that 14 to 21 drinks per week tripled hippocampal atrophy risk. Even moderate consumption accelerated cognitive decline. with each additional drink raising risk proportionally. A meta-analysis of over 1 million adults in The Lancet reported that more than 21 drinks per week increased dementia risk by 170%, and 7 to 14 drinks weekly increased risk by 17%. Alcohol harms the brain via multiple pathways: neurotoxicity, thiamine deficiency, leading to Wernicke, Korsakoff syndrome, inflammation, sleep disruption, high homocysteine, and impaired neurogenesis. Brain imaging from 36,678 adults showed that moving from 0 to 1 drink per day aged the brain by 2 years, and 1 to 2 drinks added 2 more years. Binge drinking is especially damaging, causing acute swelling, white matter damage, and hippocampal neuron death. Even after quitting, some damage persists, particularly in executive function and working memory. Alcohol use disorders are the leading modifiable risk factor for early-onset dementia, responsible for 38.9% of cases under 65. Alcohol's social acceptance and promotion make it insidious. Even moderate drinking causes brain damage, and the supposed cardiovascular benefits are outweighed by neurological harm. Every drink is a withdrawal from your cognitive reserve, accelerating the onset of dementia symptoms. Your brain is the most complex structure in the known universe, with 86 billion neurons and trillions of connections shaping everything you think, feel, and remember. The 6 habits we've discussed don't act in isolation. They compound each other, accelerating neurodegeneration, often decades before symptoms appear. The good news: your brain is remarkably resilient. Research shows that addressing these habits, even in midlife, can reduce risk and reverse some early damage. Every positive choice today, walking, socializing, eating nutritious meals, managing stress, improving sleep, or reducing alcohol, is an investment in your cognitive future. The question isn't whether you'll age, it's whether you'll age with your memories, personality, and independence intact, or lose them to preventable disease. Knowledge without action is useless. Start protecting your brain today. If you found this helpful and want to protect your brain and future, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Share this idea with someone you care about, and leave your experiences and opinions in the comments below. We love hearing from you.